Welcome to the Leaderish podcast with your hosts, Regina and Doris. Hey, Doris. How's it going?
Hey, Regina, it's going very well. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I've had a great few weeks and excited to continue some really great work. How about you?
I also have had a pretty busy fall so far. Went to several conferences, continued to increase my network, and I'm excited about our conversation today. It's a little unique because I'm interviewing you today.
I know.
So, a little different from our usual podcasts. I'm very excited to interview you about a very exciting program you have going on. So, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about it?
I need to start back a year and a half ago. A year and a half ago, when I started my coaching and consulting business, of course, I had nothing to do. I had no clients. An organization that I had worked with had gone through a layoff, and I offered a whole bunch of people free coaching because I just wanted to stay busy. And they had all been laid off. I told them that they could have coaching on anything they wanted. If they wanted to figure out what their next career move was, or if they wanted to have coaching on how to get over the stress of being laid off, whatever. What I didn't imagine is that every single one would want help with interviewing. And we're talking dozens of people. I didn't even bring it up. They all said, I want help interviewing. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm going to be real honest. I had no clue, and I'm like, I'll try to help you. Anyway, here's what I found. Out of the dozens of people, the majority of them actually landed jobs in the next couple months before their severance packages ran out. I know, it was a really hard job market. Nobody else was doing that. And I started going back to them. I'm like, what was it? And they're like, I nailed the interview. You really helped me. I'm like, what? I don't understand.
I think you must have been a sounding board. Yeah. Obviously, you have experience. You're in talent management, so you have more experience than you realize. And the first rule in coaching is if you know 10% more than your client, you're actually okay because you can work along with them as you learn and grow your skill. Your clients are getting value out of everything that you're helping them with. And I'm sure that's exactly what was happening. And you were able to observe them from a different angle. If I'm preparing for an interview and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm pretending that I'm talking to someone and asking questions, I don't really see myself the way someone else is going to see me. And it's so helpful to have someone with your skill set. Because again, you are in talent management. It wasn't like you flipped burgers at McDonald's. You had a skill set. You were in HR. You understood the landscape. And so you were able to provide valuable feedback as you were listening to people practice their interviewing skills.
Yeah. And what I was able to bring to the table is that I understood that an interviewer, and this is just for me interviewing countless numbers of people, that the interviewer needs three things from you when you sit down to interview with them. They need connection. They need to feel like you're connected. Somehow you've connected. They want to hear clarity. They want you to know that what you are sharing is clear and real. And the third thing is that they're checking to see how well you can communicate.
Absolutely.
And what I learned through these dozens of people and then dozens of more since then, as I've gotten better and better and better with more reps of this, is that those three things make the magic equation for interviewers to say, I want this person to come work with us. Those three things. Because here's what I know. I know that in today's job market, in the fall of 2025, moving into 2026, you can apply for 50 to 100 jobs, and you may only get one or two interviews with companies.
Yeah, I have heard even more horror stories than that. A friend of mine applied for 500 jobs, did wind up landing a job, but no one called him back. And it took him, I want to say 6 months or 9 months to land a job. And I know we don't want to spend a lot of time on the resume, but I do think we need to go back to the resume just for a minute in order to get that interview.
That's right.
So can you share just a few tips and tricks on what you need to do or what people who are looking for a job need to do differently on their resume so that they can land the interview?
Yes. And I'll even do one better. I'll give you that, but I'll also tell you how you can use AI to get your resume exactly where you need it. Okay. Because I think it's really important because you're right. If you apply for 100 jobs and you're not getting interviews, it's your resume,
Mm-hmm.
period. If you are applying for jobs and you're getting interviews, but you're not landing the job, it's your interview.
Yep.
But remember, you need to be prepared for those interviews because you're probably only going to be able to interview with 1 to 2 companies. But you have to be seen first. And your resume is how you get seen. Most organizations have now what they call an applicant tracking system. That applicant tracking system takes your resume and your data, compares it to the job description, and gives you a score. So what essentially it does is it says, Regina is either really likely to do well at this job based on their resume or not so well. Any score around below an 80 is likely not going to get you an interview. You don't want to have a score of 100 because that means that you have keyword dumped all over your resume. And now you're at a point where you've just
You don't sound
inundated.
real.
You don't sound real.
Sound real.
That's right. Yeah. You're like trying every keyword and you've got it in there. So you don't want to do that either. You don't want to get to 100%, but you want to be at about 90%. And the way that you do that is you compare the job description to your resume to figure out what keywords that organization is looking for that role. And I would say that you need to do this for every job, but look, you said I'm in talent management. If I'm going to go for VP of talent management, and those are the jobs that I'm going to get, then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to AI, and I'm going to tell my AI thing. I use ChatGPT. Some people use Claude, whatever you use. I'm going to tell my AI thing to, number one, act as if they were an applicant tracking system and go out and find every role for the title of Vice President of Talent Management, search for at least 15 of those roles and determine the keywords that come up in that job description. Also tell me how often they come up in how many of the roles. And probably just because I like to do this, I'm going to ask my chat agent to also give me links to all of those jobs. I like to double check to make sure that my chat agent is not hallucinating. So I like to have the link so I can click on it. So I'm going to ask my chat agent for all that. My chat agent's probably going to give me back a table. You can instruct it to do that, by the way. Give me a table that has this column, this column, and this column. It's going to give you back a list of keywords and how often they show up in the job descriptions that are available online for VP of Talent Management. Great. That's step one. Now we know what we're looking for here. Step two is then to upload your resume and say, now compare my resume to the keywords that you found and tell me what changes I should be making and why I should make those changes. And I kid you not, your chat agent will come back with, you have program management in your resume. However, most of the job descriptions ask for project management. Simple fix, change the word program management to project management. They're the same thing.
Yeah.
So quick and easy way to check your resume. Now, that's if I just wanted to do it for all VP of Talent Management roles. My guess is that when I upload that resume to all of the applicant tracking systems, it's going to score somewhere around 90, which is where we want it to be. Okay. At least above 85, but not below 80.
So let's assume you've done that.
Yep.
What are the chances that now that work will land you an interview?
Yeah. So if you're above a 90, what's going to happen is The recruiter is going to look at the resumes that are in that 85 to 95 range. They're going to look at, usually they batch in 10s. They're going to look at the 10 highest scoring. They're going to review them, and then they're going to send them off to the hiring manager. Now, the hiring manager...
You're not ever talking to the recruiter.
Now, and we can talk about some networking things to do so that you can talk to a recruiter. That is definitely something that we work on, is how to use your network. We work on that in the program. It's something that we work on with folks, and you should use your network. If you see someone in your network who works at the organization that you're applying for, first thing is to reach out to see if you can get a referral code, because a referral code is going to give you extra points and it's going to put you ahead of everyone else. So don't apply and then ask for the referral. You first reach out to your friend and say, hey, your company's hiring for this role. Do you guys do a referral bonus or something like that? I'd love a code so that you can get credit.
Oh, interesting.
My last company paid $2,500 per
And I know there
referral.
are a lot of companies that offer referrals, but I've never heard them use a referral code. It was more, once you get in the interview and if you land the job, make sure that you tell them that Joe sent you.
Oh, yes. And though, with modern applicant tracking systems, employees can get their own code generated. And oftentimes, when you see somebody reposting a role like on LinkedIn, it's with their own referral code so that they would get the referral bonus if you're hired.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yes, it's done systematically now, instead of waiting for Doris to say, oh yeah, Regina referred me. Most of it's done systematically. Now, that's not every company. Some companies are small and still do the kind of word of mouth. But larger companies, wrapped up in their applicant tracking system is a referral program so that employees can get paid after you've stayed on, usually 60 or 90 days after you've been hired and you're still there. Then they will get a nice bonus. They do not mind giving their link to you so that you pop up to the head of the line.
Oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think you're right about the larger companies. I worked for a smaller company that had a referral bonus, and they did not use that system. Now, that was a few years ago.
Sure.
But they were too small to probably use one of those codes.
Yeah.
But I want to ask about recruiters. And there are some people that when they're looking for a job, they will use a recruiter rather than, yes, they will apply, but they will have the recruiter sometimes look for jobs for them. How does that change what you do or how you apply or how you change your resume if you're using a recruiter to get to land that interview, that coveted interview that we're going to talk about in a second?
Doris, I'm struggling to answer that because I know of headhunters, many of them. And so headhunters are compensated if they fill a role in your organization. So let's say your organization needs a vice president of logistics. Then organization X reaches out to a headhunter and says, can you fill this role? And so the only way that the headhunter gets paid is if they bring the perfect candidate to organization X and organization X hires that candidate. Then they get paid.
Yeah.
So,
and I think I'm using that interchangeably, headhunter and recruiter, that recruiters can be used as headhunters. So I think they can work for the company, but they can also help you as someone who's looking for that company or find that role available to them.
yes. Now, in organizations, they usually have what's called a sourcing team. And what that sourcing team does is they go out and look for people who maybe don't have open to work turned on or have not applied for a job at that company. And what they do, it's like sales. They fill a funnel of talent that they've nurtured that they want to bring into the organization. And they keep them warm, if you will, until a role pops up. So you might be a sourcer for finance. You might go out and find finance analysts, finance leaders with certain skills and qualities, and you keep them in a jar for when you have a finance role open up. You can reach out to them as well. You can reach out to sourcers and get on their list whether it's with a company or a headhunter. You can also reach out to headhunters and get on their list because it is their benefit to give really great candidates to their client. Now, the challenge, though, sometimes is that these headhunters and these sourcers, they don't check to see if the person's interviewing skills are great. They know their resume looks great. They know that they have the skills, but what they don't know is if they can land the job through the interview and build that connection, bring that clarity, and demonstrate deep communication skills.
So let's move to the meat of this discussion today is those interview skills.
That's right.
I know you are working on some models on how to improve those interview skills and what people are doing, maybe some roadblocks, what they're doing wrong. And then on the other side of the coin, what the ones that are getting it right. Like you mentioned at the beginning of this interview that you've had people that before you even knew what you were doing, you were helping people land jobs.
That's right.
And what was different between that interview and someone that didn't have any coaching on interviewing?
Yeah. I think the easiest way to put it is that we don't know what our blind spots are. That's why they're called blind spots. We don't know. I don't realize how many times I say in a podcast episode until we go to edit it. Blind spot. When we work with someone else, what happens is now you have another human that's observing you and can tell you how many you have leveraged in a conversation, or can tell you where you lost clarity or where maybe you started to ramble. And let me tell you, this is not the job for somebody who doesn't want to give feedback. My coaches give tough feedback because the only way you're going to be better is if you hear the truth and you experience the truth. Understanding how you build or don't build connection is really important. And I'll share an example of this. I'll share an example of all three. But the connection one seems to be a blind spot over and over and over again for people. They go into interviews, they're nervous, they get stoic, they're all business, they're super professional, they don't smile. I had a client that I was working with, and we were on session 3, and all of a sudden he laughed and he smiled as he was talking to me, and his face lit up. There was the biggest twinkle in his eye. I said, that right there, you have to do that in every interview, and I'm going to show you exactly what you did. And I replayed his facial movements, his eye movements, his laugh, and his smile. And he goes, I did that? I said, yes. And it was a beautiful moment of connection. And he's like, whoa, crazy. I had another client recently.
Before you
go
go
ahead,
on,
yeah.
I want to touch on that because I think it's really important that when you showed him, that made a difference in that first 5-minute appeal that you make to every human that you meet, every person you meet. You get judged very quickly whether someone likes you or doesn't like you.
Yes.
And in an interview process, it's even more important because now you're nervous, you're scared, your hands are clammy. And as this person was before he lit up, that's probably how he showed up in an interview, and it wasn't friendly. And the hiring manager is making a judgment that this is a very unfriendly person and I don't want him on my team. But when you were able to turn that around and show that he was able to sparkle and that twinkle in his eye, and if he can bring that to an interview, all of a sudden he's likable and someone sees that right away. And it takes courage because you have to be able to muster the strength to say, yes, I have a twinkle in my eye. And I'm going to show up with that twinkle in my eye, even if maybe in the back of my brain I don't feel it, so that the hiring manager can judge me in a way that, yes, I do want this person on my team.
Yeah, it's that making connection. And it doesn't have to be, so where are you from? Or do you have kids? It doesn't have to be that. It is just a way to bring people in.
Oh, and don't ask if they have kids, by the way.
Right. Yeah. Don't do that. We won't go into that. This isn't for the folks that are interviewing. That can get you in a lot of trouble. I had another client that I worked with. She had 4 interviews, or she got to the final interview in 4 different companies and didn't make any of them. And it wasn't her clarity and it wasn't her communication because they were on point. It was the toxicity that has been lingering because of the organization she works with right now. She doesn't want to get close to people in her organization. So she's built up this wall and she's taking that wall with her to interviews. And by simply discussing that and finding that out, we were then able to figure out how does she make those connections, as you said, in those first 5 minutes, because
Yeah.
she's getting judged.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is about those things, the smile, the twinkle in your eye, the making some sort of connection with people, those things your interviewer cannot put their finger on. So you get down to the last interview and they're like, I'm going to take Fred over Jim. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, but they can't really say why Jim, they're not going to take Jim because they both had similar skills. They both answered the questions technically very well, but there was something missing. And it's usually the connection piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are a couple stories. The connection thing is probably one of the biggest ahas that I got in doing all of this coaching to help people interview.
How did you help that girl turn around?
Well, what we did was we dug really deep into how she was showing up because I knew it wasn't the resume because she's getting interviews. I mean, in the last few months, she's had four interviews with organizations and made it to the final. Not just one interview, not just a recruiter interview. She's had several. She's done presentations
Yeah.
for panels. She's done work for them. She's presented work and yet still didn't make it. And as we were digging in, we both came to the realization at the same moment through some really good questions and from me feeding back what I was noticing in her. And she was like, oh my gosh, I am not connecting with people because of where I'm at currently with my job.
Were you able to turn it
Crazy.
around?
She had an interview that day and the interview went pretty well. So we found some easy things to fake it till you make it because in her situation, she was in a really bad, really toxic environment. So it was essentially, how do you fake it right now? How do you fake connection? Or how do you at least put on your connection face for your 30-minute interview and before you have to take it off again to take a work call?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she came up with a whole plan. It was her plan, not mine. She came up with a whole plan on what she would do before the interview, how she would prepare for that. And then we talked about things that she would do in the interview to build that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fake it till you make it is one of those phrases that I've actually tried to stop using as much.
I know. I thought about that right as I said it.
And maybe we talked about it before. It is more thinking about, let's just assume I already have the job and bringing that mindset, that abundance mindset that I already have the job. I'm not faking anything because I already have the job.
Yeah.
And come to the interview as though you are accepting that job and come with that kind of mindset and that belief before the fake it part and remove the fake it part and make it real. In your mind, it's real.
It's that confidence.
It's the confidence. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Not being overconfident because that's
No.
cocky, but
That's
being
cocky, yeah.
confident that this job is for you and telling yourself, I've already got it.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm
And
excited to
it's a
connect.
slightly different switch than that fake it, because the fake it till you make it, it still feels like there's something in disbelief in your brain.
Yeah.
But if you go to the interview saying, this job is mine, without getting overly cocky, then you'll bring a different level of confidence and joy, hopefully, to that interview.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You are dead on. And when you are in a toxic environment, it is really hard to build up confidence because it's been so withered away. And so I think that's where fake it till you make it comes in. But you're right. It is more like an abundance mindset shift that comes in for you. It's not necessarily faking it. It is figuring out how do you tap into that, even if it is for 30 minutes or even if it is for an hour interview.
Yeah.
I love
All right. Part 2 of your 3-part, the clarity. How do you bring more clarity to an interview?
Oh, I love it. So clarity and communication go together and connection too. And this is through storytelling. As humans, we want to hear stories. As humans, we naturally connect to stories. We understand stories. We communicate in stories. So,
Mhm.
how do you tell stories that are memorable? Remember, we talked about that 5 minutes. You brought it up that you got 5 minutes to make that impression.
Yes.
In the first 5 minutes, they know. So, if you can leverage storytelling as early in that conversation as possible, then you become more memorable.
Mhm.
We don't remember facts, we remember stories. Think about the last time you were at an event where there was a keynote speaker. You probably can't tell me everything about their keynote speech, but you probably can tell me about the story that touched you.
Oh, I was at a conference last week and the keynote speaker was amazing and he had story after story after story. And there's another keynote speaker, same conference a year ago, same situation, story after story after story, and
Mhm.
so memorable that I immediately had to buy the book and I had to reread those stories or read the stories that I heard at the conference because they were so memorable and I wanted to make sure that they stuck with me. And it's so true. Stories are important. And I think the story that you can easily come up with is if you notice something, go in and observe with the twinkle in your eye, observe something, whether it's something that someone is wearing or an item on someone's desk, or even if it's a virtual environment, maybe something in the background that you can connect with, that you can say, I love your blue suit. And that blue, not getting weird, but
That blue makes your eyes pop.
that okay, don't go there. Maybe it's an item on their desk that reminds you of a city you visited. Oh, that item that looks like you went to Whistler, British Columbia. That's one of my favorite cities. Have you ever been there or how often have you been there? And start with
Mhm.
that story. And that will all of a sudden, the twinkle is probably there because you're starting on something that is not related to the job, but it's something that's going to be memorable. They will remember you for noticing that item on their desk or the pair of earrings that you have on, whatever it is, that you've observed something and you turned it into a memorable story. That is another way for them to remember you over another candidate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But leveraging that storytelling when you're answering questions too,
Mhm.
also is a great way to stay memorable and create that clarity and communicate well. And what I work with my clients on is about a 5-step model, if you will, but I'll go over 3 of the steps that are the gist of it here.
Mhm.
And that is composing your story by number 1, starting with the situation or the context.
Yeah.
What happened? What was happening in your organization at the time? What were you asked to do? What challenge were you facing? What is the situation? What's the context behind the story before you tell the story? And then you talk about the actions that you took. And if it is a story on collaboration, then you talk about the actions the team took and the part that you played in that, whatever that looks like. And then after that, you talk about the results and the impact. That is the impact that you or the team or the project had on the organization or the project or whatever it was, the challenge, how you
Mhm.
overcame that challenge. So you use this super simple SAR model, and it goes in more depth and we add some layers to it and stuff. But that is a great way to get started. And what I recommend is that you have 4 stories that fit into this model,
Mhm.
and they're all 4 very different stories. And then what you do is you map those stories to different skills that are listed out in the job description. If they want communication, this story and this story are great for communication. If they want somebody who is strategic, this story and this story are great for strategy. And so different stories can be communication and strategy.
Mhm.
They can be great examples of 3 or 4 different skills. And you're leveraging that deep storytelling that is clear and not overdone and not too long,
Mhm.
but that connects really well with the individual. And you make it conversational. And so, what that might sound like is, oh, we were going through a huge challenge in our organization where we were losing our employees, and we were really concerned about that as an organization. And so I was tasked to dig into the retention model that we were currently using. How do you guys measure your retention? Or does that sound familiar? Have you ever been at an organization where the retention was just through the roof? And so you're bringing them into
Yeah.
the conversation, right? You're making it a little bit more conversational as you're talking about that. And then you talk about the actions that you took, and the, maybe for this example, you're talking about the data that you pulled and how you were leveraging that data, and how you looked at the interview data that you had and you analyze that in a different way, or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
And then you talked about the things that you changed and what with those results, or the recommendations that you made, how you made those recommendations. And now you've put that into a couple categories. You've got data analytics in there. You've got communicating with stakeholders in there. You've got collaboration with a team in there. You've got solving a complex problem in there. So these are all areas where you can use that story. And the great thing is if there's another story that fits one of those areas, you can come back to that story without having to go through the context. Hey, do you
Yeah.
remember that story we talked about with around the employee retention? I want to dig into that to show you this skill.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to build on that, and you're using that story. So that's why I recommend 4 stories.
Mhm.
The other thing that you want to do is, if you use the same story with different interviewers, you want to say, oh, I want to share with you a story that I shared with Fred, who interviewed me 2 days ago,
Mhm.
because you want to make that connection. And you have some people who want to hear similar stories so that they can talk about it. And you have some people that are like, yeah, I heard that story too. Are they a one-trick pony? So you want to call it out in your interview. Oh, I
Yeah.
shared this with Fred when I met with him on Tuesday.
Yes.
Here's the story. And then
And
you go into
you're adding
situation.
another layer to it too. You're probably not sharing the story word verbatim the way that you shared it with Fred the
Of
week
course.
before, because the question is slightly different
Yeah.
from Susie that you're interviewing with today, and you're adding another layer onto that.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on the results on that SAR model. I
Yep.
have found that resumes that I've looked at sometimes are lacking those results. People are starting to get good about action words in their resume, but they don't necessarily add the results
That's right.
that came with that. And I know how important that is, and being able to show that yes, you can get things done, but at what level can you get those done? And
That's right.
showing that you were able to increase revenue by X amount, or improve retention by X percent,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever the data is, that you're able to add that data into your resume. And I think a lot of resumes, and even at the interview process, that gets missed. And I know how important that is for companies.
Yeah, it really is. Your results don't always have to be data driven, especially in the interview, right? Your
Mhm.
result, if they want to know about stakeholder alignment, your result probably needs to be tied to, I was able to get all 15 stakeholders aligned
Yeah.
and moving forward, and
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
able to deliver, all 15 of the stakeholders were able to deliver X, Y, and Z. That might be fine. But if you're
Mhm.
talking about solving a problem or changing a business process, and you're using that retention example, then maybe your result is that retention increased or attrition decreased by
X
4%
percent.
over
Mhm.
6 months, and has continued to decrease as you've implemented additional interventions to retain top talent.
Yeah.
Right. So those are all things that we want to share. It doesn't always have to be numbers, but if you can use numbers, you want to use numbers always.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that.
That was a great question. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. One of the other notes that I wanted to touch on was qualified versus compelling in the interview process. Can you talk
Yeah.
a little bit on that?
Yeah. There are a lot of qualified people out there for just about every job now. And I am hearing of people who are in higher level roles taking lower level roles right now because the job market is pretty tough. And there there is a lot to be said about your resume and your work and your skills. Also, there are 100 other people who have the resume and the skills, and they've done the work, and they've gone through the career path too. So the difference in you and everyone else is that you must be compelling.
Mm-hmm.
You must be compelling. You have to stay in their brain. And here's why, because your interview panel, they're going to be debriefing your interview and the interview of the other 3 candidates that they've been interviewing. They're going to do that debrief a week later.
Yeah.
And when they do that, you want to stay in the brain of the interviewers. And you do that with those compelling stories. You do that by drawing your interviewers into the story. Have you ever experienced a problem like that? Or I bet this might be something you guys experience in your organization. Whatever that might look like, drawing them into your story is what is going to make you memorable so that you are compelling when they do that debrief and they're like, oh, I want Doris.
Yeah.
I loved Doris's example of A, B, and C.
Now, how about the research that the candidate can do on the company? Obviously, they're going to look at the company's website. Hopefully, they will look at the company's website. And let's say it's HR related job, make sure that you're looking at the HR page and you could probably draw some compelling points to the story that you're telling based on the research that you've done on the company through the HR page or the product page, or even on some of the review companies. You might do some research on Glassdoor and you can bring up some compelling things that you find on Glassdoor. Maybe it's a very positive interview. I was reading about this anonymous review on how wonderful the president is. And it made me realize that it's one of the reasons I want to work for the company and so that again is you're just telling a story. You're based on research that you've done. And now you're a little bit more compelling than the other candidates because of that story that you've brought up.
Doris, this was an awesome conversation today. We hit a lot of ground, didn't we?
We did. We did. It was fun, just the two of us. I love having guests on, but I love the conversation that the two of us have
Yeah.
when it's just us. And it was fun interviewing you.
It was fun.
I love this program that you have created. I am so excited to know how many people you have helped through the program that you've created. And I know you have so much more to give on this. And we will have all the links of what you can provide in the show notes, along with a tip. I believe you have a free tip sheet that you will create or that you have created. And that will be a part of the links in the show notes. And I know we'll mention that on social media as well. And I think that there's so many people out there looking for jobs right now, and they can use this real-time information and feedback that you are providing. And I think it's a fantastic service and so well worth it. And I know that you have offered amazing tips to lots of people, and they're very appreciative.
Thank you for that. The interesting thing about this is that me and my coaches, we've gotten so good at this that we can get you through the entire program in 5 days. An organization calls you and says, hey, we want to have you in for an interview. Can you come in next week? We can get you through the entire program in 5 days and get you ready to nail that interview with the organization that has given you a buzz. And that is huge. Most programs can't do that, but we can with our amazing coaches and our ability to get all the content, all the coaching that you need in 5 days. We do an hour a day if we need to. And then you have pre-work and post-work. You can dig in and you can dig deep and you can go really fast. If you don't want to do that's fine too. You can do every couple days. You can do even once a week if you want to. We're pretty flexible with that. But we have the ability to get you 100% interview ready in 5 days.
I know so many people that could use this right now.
know.
So many people.
I know. It's so exciting. It's so exciting. And it's really my heart and my passion because I know how hard it is out there right now. And if I can help folks land that next job and get a good paycheck and not be unemployed or not be stuck in a toxic environment, then that is what I want to do with my life. So
Yeah.
thank you for letting me share a little bit about this and what I've learned on this journey for the last year and a half as I've built this out and learned and grown and changed the way that I do things and also changed the way that I help other coaches do this as well.
It was amazing speaking with you, and I know all of our listeners will enjoy this interview.
Great conversation. That is about it for us today. If you'd like to follow us, make sure you follow us on the YouTube. We're at Leaderish Podcast. That's new for us, but I think we've got 15 or so episodes on YouTube, and some of them have been watched a lot. Doris, if you haven't checked it out, go check it out because people are digging us on YouTube. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, and of course, you can check out our website. So you can find all of our contact information in the notes. If you're interested in being a guest, we love having guests. So you can reach out to us. And if you listen to the podcast and you have something that you want to talk about, even if you know us, just tell us. We'd love to have you on. We have our friends on all the time. Those are our favorite interviews. Anyway, give us a buzz at leaderishpodcast@gmail.com. And with that, I will say cheers.
Cheers.